As you can see here on the right, I have the plan we devised in the analysis video. And to get started here with the implementation, I'm just going to create the script. And with that out of the way, let's get started with coding here. And I'm going to start in the main function. So we're going to try to create two lists with names, one with first names and one with last names. After that, we're going to call our function createName, which will return a full name to us. And that full name we're then going to print. So I'm going to try to start working here, and let's see how the code would look. And we can see here the code that I added was the lines for creating the lists. We have them here, we initialize them and give them some values. After that, we call our function createName, and what we get back is a string which is a full name. That will be one of the names from the first line, maybe Pelle, and then one last name from the second row, maybe Nilsson. And that will be our full name, which is then printed. But of course, we haven't created this function createName yet, so that is the next thing we need to do. And if we take a look here on the right, what we say here in our plan is that we shall generate two random numbers. Those we are going to use to pick one first name and one last name. The random numbers are going to be the indexes that we use to pick the names, and those together, the two picked names, will be our full name, which we then return. So let's try to write some code for that. And with the code finished, we see that, all right, we start by generating two random numbers. To do that, we must import the random library, and we must start at 0, and 0 is going to be included. And the trick here is when you call randint, the upper limit is also included, meaning that if we don't want a number that is too big for how many elements we have in our lists, we must take the length of, for example, first name and then subtract 1. Because if we have 1, 2, 3, 4 names, we want this will length of first names will be 4, but we want the last index to be 3, because the indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3. So that is why we start at 0 and we take the length of the list minus 1, just so that we get 0 to 3. And we do that for first and last index, so we get two numbers. Those two numbers we use to reference two different indexes in the two different lists. Till we get a first name, then we add a space in between and the last name. Then we return the full name. So let's try to run it and see how it looks. And we see that we get one name here, Pelle Svensson. But what if we run it again and again? We see that we got Pelle Svensson 2 times, and that is random, we can't decide. But then we get Kalle Karlsson, Pelle Nilsson, Kalle Karlsson, Kajsa Svensson. Oh, we see, I read it wrong. Pelle Svensson and Pelle Nilsson, we got different last names up here. I thought they were the same, I just misread. So we see that it picks names at random. And what can we see here? Well, we have created lists. We use those as parameters when we call a function. Within that function, we generate random numbers to access a random element in the list. We use those random elements to build the full name. So we have followed our plan for how to solve this, but one of the things that we should always do when we are finished is to reflect on our solution. And we can change this to something that might be easier to read. I'm going to change it and then we can take a look. So we can see that I changed the code a little bit. Now let's just try to run it first and see if it still works. And we see that we get a random name. Let's run it again. And we see that it is random because we have a different last name here. And we can try it again. So we have changed the code a little bit, and it's always good to reflect on the code that you have and see if you can come up with a different, easier to read solution. Even if this is the plan that we had, when we're finished, we should always reflect on the code. And we see here, if we read it, in this new solution, we don't have to think about what the limits are, that the lower limit is 0 and the upper limit, yeah, that was this where we had the length of the list -1. We don't have to think about that here because we can use random.choice, which will pick one of the elements in this list at random and give it back to us. So it handles everything with the limits. And then we can look at the code and hopefully think that it's a little bit easier to read for whoever comes after us and shall read the code. But I'll leave both of the solutions here so that you can have a look at them.